Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Plus. It was the coldest May in 4 decades for Delhi, and while Delhiites enjoyed the sporadic rainfall during the summer month, it has hurt businesses. Not just businesses in unorganized sector where vegetable vendors to food stalls took a beating, it also hurt businesses of summer products such as air conditioners, refrigerators and beverages. Air conditioner sales were down in May by 35%. And many companies say they've had to reduce output by as much as 30% to counteract the lower business. The challenge is more pronounced in north of India, which accounts for almost 35% of the total summer sale. What does this mean for businesses, both organized and unorganized? To discuss that and more, I'm being joined by Avneet Singh Marwa, who's the CEO of Super Plastronics. Also with us very shortly will be Avijit Ghoshal, who's a senior journalist at TV9. With me in the studio is my colleague Krishnakumar. Krishna, it is a very interesting story. On one hand, you have people who are relieved by rainfall, although sporadic, but every other day. While it augurs well for us, for people who've had to bear the heat for over and over in last 40 years, suddenly you have the month of May, which is the coolest in last 4 decades. What does not do well here is local business, both in organized sector and in unorganized sector. And when I say local business, particularly to north of India, which accounts for, as we pointed out, 35% of the summer sales. And when I say summer sales of AC, refrigerators, and more importantly, beverages, things you consume in summers.
Well, absolutely. It's been a black swan event, if I may, when it comes to weather. A weather pattern repeating after 40 years, nearly 40 years, 37 years as far as Delhi is concerned. But the fact of the matter is that, Shweta, you've seen unseasonally and unreasonably high rains across the country. You saw what happened at the IPL final in Ahmedabad. Ahmedabad hasn't seen rains like that in the month of May in a very long time. You're seeing crazy rains in Bengaluru. You're seeing crazy rains in Chennai. At this time of the year, which is usually home to the northeast monsoons, which take place in the October-November months, and gets very little rain from the southwest monsoons that are just about to begin in the country. So there is a clear climate change pattern that is emerging. And because of which all the stuff that you mentioned about what happens to the product sales, because all these products, remember, they're cyclical. Their sales are the highest, are expected to be the highest. So for all the winter months when the sales are low, it's always considered that, all right, it is meant to be low now, but when it comes to the actual summer months, that's when the sales will pick up, and the expectations are extremely high during the summer months. And at a time when the economy is recovering, every cycle needs to happen well. After the summer cycle, you will have the festive season coming up. A lot of these products, absolutely. ACs, and all these things, and even beverages, you want the high sales and consumption during that period. So it's a little disturbing that from the economy perspective, the weather pattern, the climate change pattern is throwing a wrench in the plans of the sales of consumer products.
Right. We're trying to patch our guests, Krishna, but what's also important is that every company, and be it beverage making company or companies that are into making ACs, manufacturing coolers, they have an inventory that they prepare well in advance to stock up for high demand. Now, what will happen as a result of a high inventory and less demand is that either the companies are going to wait and watch out that these demands will be met in the month of June, which is when things get more hotter. If not, it's going to be a loss for all of these companies.
Yeah, a lot is going to depend on what's happening in June. And as we speak, the sunshine is back here in the national capital. We've seen a few cloudy, overcast few days and thunderstorms once in a while. But now we're looking at a situation where you have the sun shining back, so the hopes will be up for all the consumer products maker, the air conditioners, the coolers. In Delhi, North India, you talk about cooler business as well. All the coolers, air coolers that are sold over here, because for the dry weather that is all over North India. Coolers, not much of a factor in the south of India, where the weather is very humid, but ACs are a factor in South India as well. But the fact of the matter is that they will be hoping on an extremely hot June. Much to our dismay, who have been, the beneficiaries of a wonderful weather over the course of the month of May, which we dread the most. But the fact of the matter is that the AC makers and the beverage makers, the ice cream makers,
ice cream makers,
ice cream sales are down. Beverage sales are down, ice cream sales are down, air conditioner sales are down, because the sun is down.
Absolutely, and you know, and ice cream makers in particular, because you, as you rightly pointed out, many of them banking on their local stalls to go from one place to another, and they haven't been able to travel as much because of incessant rainfalls every now and then. But you know, overall, if we were to understand what is happening here, for a lay person out there, these are signs of global warming, Krishna. These are signs of how climate change is affecting lives and livelihood directly.
Yeah. And interestingly, it's doing it from both ends. If it affects our lives in a particular way positively, it ends up affecting our livelihoods negatively, like what is happening right now. You know, we're happy to not have the hot weather beating down upon us, but what it does mean is that it will affect the growth of the economy. It will affect the growth of all these companies, and all these companies will then, as you rightly pointing out, all the stock and all the inventory that they have. What happens to that inventory? Are they going to do discount sales to clear off that inventory? You know, will the prices of ACs come down? So we don't know about that, but like you said, a lot will depend upon how the weather continues in the month of June or changes, you know, in terms of it becoming hotter. Then we'll see some kind of normalcy. But essentially May, June, July, you know, after the, you know, April, May, June, these 3 months, the second quarter of the year is when all these products, air conditioners, you know, aerated beverages, juices, ice creams, all of them look forward to a bumper season.
That is correct.
You know, and you know, they say that this time the monsoons are going to be, you know, as meeting expectations and normal as well. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
Right. There are of course fears of El Nino, but you know, just this morning we were discussing GDP data, and one of the foremost indicators of how a country is doing is consumption, and consumption of summer sales or summer products is specifically down on the back of rainfall. We will of course get more data, more insights into how this affects the macroeconomic picture of the country.
Yes, definitely. We'll have to see what happens to, you know, when there's unseasonal rainfall, when unseasonal rainfall.
And this is clearly unseasonal.
Unseasonal rainfall at these levels. Now you can have showers, you know, passing showers or sporadic showers and all that's fine. We're talking about thunderstorms, repeated thunderstorms in the National Capital Region and the whole of North India.
And it not just impacts lives, but it also impacts crop.
Exactly.
And
so
there is a
really
damage
have to
to
see,
crop.
you know, how much damage it has done to the crop, because that data is yet to be out. We can sit here and pontificate. You know, the fears are that, you know, it would have done a certain amount of damage to the crops over there. So that damage is yet to be assessed. That damage is yet to be known, as you're rightly pointing out. So we'll wait for that. But one damage is already showing up is the fact that air conditioner sales are down, you know, beverages sales are down. The thing is that, like you're telling, that like you were saying, they will be in a wait and watch mode, because they will have to see, because this is not something that they expected to happen in the month of May. This is something that none of us expected to happen in the month of May. When was the last time you saw an IPL final being played over 3 nights? And that's what happened essentially. So in that situation, there is no, I doubt they have any other option but to wait and watch.
Wait and watch is what we're going to do, of course, here as well. But before I let you go, and this is a story that we're tracking not just for the fact that it is an economic story. As I pointed out, this is also a story of how macroeconomic environment will be impacted, and you of course touched upon that as well. But overall, for FMCG companies, for companies that are making you know, goods that are likely to be sold in the month of summer, including beverages, ice creams, ACs to coolers, all of them are likely to take a beating.
Yeah, they will take a beating, and they will need alternative plans to make sure all the inventory that they piled up, you know, are found ways to be distributed. And he's talking about distribution is taking a hit because of all the rains, which means that movement of products are taking a hit. So, you know, in that sense, if ever we wonder about how ESG, or environment and social goals, are important for businesses in the longer term, I mean, these are good indicators.
And that's very, very interesting that you brought ESG, because if, you know, this also shows why it's important for companies to invest heavily into their goals. These goals have not just been set up as mandatory compliances by the government, but also because it has an impact on these businesses as a whole.
And look at how ironic. What is the nature doing? The nature is messing up with air conditioner sales. What does air conditioner manufacturing do? It messes up the environment. So, you know, so it seems to be a vicious cycle that seems to have come back to affect the air conditioner. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, the way the weather is, it doesn't, at least at this stage, it's not looking like this is going to continue for a very long time. We will, you know, dawn upon have a hot summer. We have quite some time to go, because we're talking about India over here. It especially North India, which starts getting cooler only by the end of November. You know, so we have a long window for AC sales, you know, and all these and all the other related product sales to do well in that sense. But we are not gods. We're not the weather gods.
Right.
We really don't know how weather is going to turn in the second week of June. We're in the 2nd of June over here, coming on the back of a very, very weird May. A May, unlike, they say, that's
May
the memes
unlike.
doing in the social media. May, it's called May because it may rain, it may shine, so it's called May. That's the kind of month we've had.
Okay, well, while it augurs well for people at large, it doesn't really augur well for companies, specifically those producing summer products. And we will, of course, have to wait and watch out for the impact it will have on sales figure. The sales figures are not yet out. But from what we're reading at this point in time, many of these companies have an inventory for 35 to 40 days, which means they're banking on June to be a stellar month in terms of sales, hoping that there'll be more sunshine and hence people are going to buy more ACs, they're going to buy more coolers, drink more, cold beverages, also eat more ice creams. And if that doesn't happen, there's going to be more supply, less demand, which means ACs could get cheaper. But all of this, is all uncertain for now. It will all depend on whether it will happen or not, whether June is going to be hotter or not. But we're going to move on for now. If you have a bank locker, you must have got a text from your bank about revised locker agreements. The Reserve Bank of India has extended deadline for banks to complete the process of renewal of locker agreements by 31st of December 2023. But what do these agreements mean? And what are you agreeing to? Under the old norms, bank assumed responsibility and the role of a custodian of the locker, which means that the bank was liable to any damage to the articles stored in the locker. Under the new agreement, banks are only responsible for the basic safety of locker and is not liable to pay compensation for loss due to natural calamity or act of God, such as an earthquake or floods. A plain reading suggests that new rules absolve banks of locker responsibility, but there is more to that than meet the eyes. We will discuss all of that. Joining me at this point in time is CH Venkatachalam, who's the General Secretary of All India Bank Employees Association. Also, Krishna continues to be with me. Krishna, this is an interesting development, but this doesn't happen suddenly. There is a Supreme Court ruling and hence the revision in locker agreements.
Yeah, correct. And you're talking about a time when security and data security are the top of minds, and this is not exactly a top of mind when it comes to bank locker security. But yes, in the complex world that we live in, where technology is growing at such a rate, it becomes uber important to make sure our bank lockers are safe. Because let's face it, putting money in banks and convincing people to put money in banks is a process that began in this century, and we finally managed to convince, even now, not everybody on this planet to put money in their banks. And what and locker services provided by banks are even more important than the money that you put in, if not equally important, even more important. That's the kind of security that people expect from bank lockers. So the kind of the revised agreement, the final agreement will tell the story of where we are going in terms of the trust, Shweta, that you're really creating between the customers of banks and banks at a time of great churn and turmoil that we live in the world.
Okay. I am yet to be told whether CH Venkatachalam has joined us or not. Sir, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes, sir. Thanks very much for speaking to News9, sir. I want to begin by asking you, what exactly led to banks to revise the terms and conditions and norms under which lockers were operating?
You see, even earlier there were conditions for taking a locker and all. But of late, some problems have come in some of the banks. Certain instances took place, and even some burglary and all. And some of the customers who took this locker, they had also taken legal course that you have to reimburse, etc. So after that, Reserve Bank has now come out with a thing that banks are not liable for the contents which are kept inside the lockers. But there is a general policy that the branch insurance is covered. So for any burglary overall, that insurance will come. Because the contents are not known to the bank. What is kept inside is not known. So how to insure that? So how to reimburse that? That's a problem that banks are facing. So now they clarified that you must take an agreement when somebody takes a locker, that banks are not liable for reimbursement, etc. when something happens. So that's how it's a recent one, and all the banks are now taking that agreement from the customers.
Okay. What does it mean for customers, sir? At this point in time, people who are listening to us who have a locker in a bank, what does it mean for them? Does it mean that their article in the bank is no more safe, as is the plain reading of it? Or does it mean in case of a fire or a health or a safety hazard or a natural disaster, if the item is lost, they will not be able to either get the money or recover the item? What does it mean for people?
No, that's why. See, I will in fact read the exact RBI circular. The bank shall clarify in their locker agreement that they do not keep a record of the contents of the locker or of any articles removed therefrom or placed therein by the customer. They would not be under any liability to insure the contents of the locker against any risk whatsoever. Bank shall under no circumstances offer directly or indirectly any insurance product to its locker hires for insurance of the locker content. This is one thing. Second, there is an instruction. Banks, with the approval of the board, shall have a branch insurance policy to minimize the loss due to incidents like robbery, fire, natural calamities, loss during shifting of the branch, etc., affecting the contents of the locker. So that part, general insurance is there. But exactly what is kept inside, even the customer, are they ready to say what is kept inside? What is the value? They don't declare anything. We don't know what they are keeping inside. In fact, now, after this Reserve Bank guideline on this 2000 rupee note, we generally get the information that in many lockers, the movement is more. That means people have kept some 2000 rupee note inside the locker. We don't know whether somebody has kept 10 crore worth of property or some jewelry or whatever it may be.
You definitely can't keep...
how to ensure that? That is the problem.
Okay. I mean, from what I'm reading at this point in time, you definitely cannot hoard large amount of cash. You can keep jewelry, you can keep documents, but you cannot hoard cash, arms or anything that is in violation of the existing rules.
No, that is one thing. Main point is we do not know the value of the content inside, and they are not declaring to us. They would not like to declare also what they keep inside the locker. So how to ensure that?
Then
so general insurance is there for the branch against fire.
So what is the general insurance, sir, if you can apprise our viewers?
No, see, all branches look into their various total value, suppose if their own property, building, or they have their furniture, they have the computer, then they have the locker overall value. For that, the branch is insured, and out of that, some indemnity will come to that particular locker if that is damaged. That is the only
what
thing.
Is the amount of insurance, sir? Let's say I have, and I'm giving an example here.
That's why it is an insurance for the branch.
Okay.
So it will come pro rata. You do not know what will get damaged. Suppose some fire is there and the locker is not affected at all, then they will not get anything. Suppose only locker part is affected by fire, computer and other things are not affected, then the entire reimbursement may go to the pro rata for the people who are affected by the fire in their locker. So it depends. It is not amount-wise. Total amount is only mentioned in the policy. Branch is insured.
Okay, so branches insure and there is no fixed money that you're likely to get in case...
Not for individuals.
Okay, there is no fixed individual money, it's only the banks and their branches that are likely to get. This is interesting, Krishna. From what I read and how I read this means essentially that although banks are not completely absolved of any responsibility, they are still responsible for ensuring the safety of the locker, for ensuring that the article that you've put inside the locker is safe. However, in case of a natural disaster, they refuse to take responsibility, which essentially means it's going to be lost with you if we've not kept it in a locker. And same is the case with the bank. If it gets lost with the bank, it's nobody's mistake.
Right, but let me be the devil's advocate for a moment over here. According to the new agreement that people have to sign, and by the way, let's keep this in mind, the new agreement has to be signed by the 30th of June. So we have a month's time, exactly less than a month's time to do this. And according to this new agreement, Shweta, the fact of the matter is that the bank will be held responsible for up to 100 times of the annual locker rent, according to this new revised agreement, in case of negligence. So this does put a lot of onus on the banks to make sure that they are extremely careful. There's no negligence, because this entire thing began last year when there was negligence on the part of a bank and they opened a locker inadvertently. That's when RBI even decided to look into the entire locker agreement, rules and the rules of the game. So now that we have a new agreement, and in this new agreement, the bank is going to be held liable up to 100 times of the annual locker rent, and that's something that everybody has to bear in mind. And in the new agreement, you have to have a bank account in the bank where you're having the locker, where you have your money getting deducted straight from your bank account. Either that, or you have to have a fixed deposit. And the fixed deposit, in case you don't have an account at the bank, you have to have a fixed deposit, and that is, the bank is permitted to take an advance equivalent to 3 years of rent, of locker rent, and charges for breaking open a locker by way of a fixed deposit.
Okay.
So, in a sense that the bank and the customer are on an even keel, are trying to arrive at an even keel, where the bank is providing 100 times responsibility. And in case we mess up, we pay you 100 times. And in case there is a problem with you, we have enough money to make sure that you don't play truant with us.
Okay. And what is the locker fee like with the bank, sir? If you could apprise us of what the fee is and what 100 times of that fee would be?
Yeah, see, there are different sizes of lockers, small one, medium one, large one, extra large one. And also it depends on the area where the branch is located. In a busy residential area, the rate is more, whereas in remote rural area, it is less. So it depends on that. But definitely it is very affordable, because for the risk that we are taking, in the sense that people can keep their valuables in the bank locker that way. But as he said, that either they have to pay the rent or they have to give us a deposit, so that on the interest of it, we adjust the locker. Because many cases, bank, we are experiencing a problem where people do not pay the locker rent. And so we are losing revenue. Ultimately, we have to resort to legal action, then invite some public people, and then break open it. All types of problems are there. And that is why banks are also very, very careful. But it's a very popular one. Normally, nothing happens. Normally. Now, recently, some burglary took place, some fire took place. So, all these things have come to light. So, that is why now the banks are taking a new agreement which says the bank shall not be liable for any case of deterioration or damage of the contents of the locker, whether caused by rain, flood, earthquake, lighting, civil disturbance, commotion, riot, war, etc. That is understandable.
Okay.
Then bank shall not be liable for any damage or loss of the contents of the locker arising from any act that is attributable to the fault or negligence of the customer. This is also quite okay. Bank shall be discharged of the obligation and shall not be liable for any cost, loss or liability incurred by the customer, including for any damage or loss of contents of locker, in the event of locker is broken open and the contents dealt with in keeping with the provisions of this agreement. So that happens, suppose we break it open. So regardless of the above, the bank's liability on the locker shall always be subject to limitation under the applicable law and regulation. So general insurance is there. It is not possible for the banks to insure the contents, because we don't know the content, what people keep inside, what is the value.
Okay.
So
I want to, sir, sorry to cut you short there. I want to come in quickly, and I want to understand, if I'm operating in Delhi and I have a small locker, could you help us understand what the locker fee is? Let's say I have a branch in South Delhi and I operate a locker. What is the fee of that locker, and what would be the 100 times of that fee?
A small or medium locker will be around 3,000 rupees to 4,000 per year.
Okay. Assuming that it's the upper limit, which is the 4,000, 100 times of 4,000 would be 4 lakh rupee?
Yeah.
And if I have kept items worth 4 crore rupees or anything more than 4 lakh, between, you know, 4 to 40 lakh rupees, the only money that I get back would be 4 lakh. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right.
That's the meaning. Yeah.
Okay. And
because
all of
somewhere we are related to the risk and also the cost, because inside value we do not know what people keep inside. It may be diamond, it may be jewel, it may be some document, it may be cash, it may be currency. We do not know.
Okay. And therefore, sir, I want to understand what was the need to change these new, agreements? What was the need to come up with new agreements and amend the old agreements?
Because last
And
2-3
did under the old agreements, all of money was insured, or the change has only been with respect to what will be protected and to what extent it will be protected?
Earlier, the bank agreements were not of this much of detail.
Okay.
But recently, some problems have come in some of the banks where the lockers were broken open by some thieves and some burglary has taken place. So people are now claiming, I kept so much, this one, that one, Allah Gulla, all types of things. So they are codified and they are safeguarding the bank's interest. This is Reserve Bank instruction. All banks are now following because now they have burned their finger because the agreement was not having clarity. Then the liability came. So now they are clarifying, that's all.
Okay.
If
And
customers have any grievance or how better it can be done, I think they should take up, and from the All India Bank Employees Association, we are all for the customers. We shall definitely take it up with the Reserve Bank, with the Indian Bank Association, even with the Finance Ministry. We will help the customers. We are fully with them. But without knowing how much value is kept inside, it is not possible for the customer to expect that it should be insured. That's the problem.
okay, so while the new agreement deadline for banks is 31st of December, banks have been advised to roll this out in a phased manner, which is to get all their customers agree to signing new licenses or agree to new license terms and conditions. What are the timeline that we're looking for people?
No, that's why now Reserve Bank has put these things, and slowly I think if customers have problem, it can be extended also. But what is the problem that customers are experiencing on account of that? What is their objection? That's more important, so that we can take up the matter with the RBI.
Okay. And
Otherwise, it's a normal course. See, tomorrow bank do not want to be in trouble legally. So they are safeguarding themselves. This is a new condition, you sign it. But
Okay.
normally, it is not going to happen. 99% it doesn't affect at all. It's a safeguard that banks are undertaking because of the bad experience. They become vulnerable legally in some of the cases. That's why.
okay, and a general question of the public.
Never banks were responsible for the content. Never.
Understood, sir. So, therefore, my next question, a general, understanding in the public, and just to clear the misunderstanding of sorts, the new agreement will not allow banks to inspect contents of the lockers, is it?
Yeah. We cannot. We are not supposed to. That defeats the very purpose of this facility.
Right.
I am giving you a safe place. You can keep whatever you want. Except that generally we are telling you are not supposed to keep any ammunition, arms, cash. These are all general things. But even if somebody keeps, we do not know. Because we don't go inside. We open the locker and come out. The customer will keep something inside. He only knows it. We have no idea at all.
And so, therefore, and we also have no clarity on whether the locker charge is going to be hiked anytime soon. I understand this is bank specific, but there is no movement there.
That will happen for some other reason also. Number one, everything is going up in our country, hike, so rent also will go up. House rent is going up, everything is going up, that's one thing. Secondly, banks' other income has become a very important source of income for the banks. And all the more on the other side, see, banks have two sides of income. One, my interest income on the loans. Second one, non-interest, other income. There, because of haircut, because of NPA, because of this insolvency, bankruptcy code, banks are going for huge haircuts. So our income on that ground is coming down and our profit margin is coming down. So that is why banks are resorting to minimum balance charges, service charges, locker charges, rental charges, for everything they are hiking. There I believe that customers have to raise their voice, that they should demand, you recover the money from the borrowers, they cheat you and you lose money, why do you pass on the buck to me? That is not coming up. I would support them also, for customers, they should come. If really the money is recovered with full, I think the rent and other service charges can be further reduced also.
All right, Mr. Venkatachalam, thanks very much for taking time out. Krishna, what it essentially means under the new agreement is that the relationship between bank and a customer, a locker customer, would be essentially that of a lessor and a lessee.
Yes.
Which means I am giving you the locker, but I'm not responsible for the contents inside that locker. I'm only going to be ensuring basic safekeeping. you are responsible thereafter in case of a natural disaster.
Yeah, and also this also sort of separates or dehyphenates the relationship of the bank with the contents of the locker, and that's what's important, because what is the point of having a locker if there is no secrecy in the locker, right? So in the sense that, so I would say that I know it looks like in a situation, it looks like the bank is washing its hands off natural disaster, but then it's a natural disaster. You would know that once there's a natural disaster, it's very difficult to pinpoint blame on any one particular institution,
that is
barring the quality of the disaster rescue operations.
That is correct.
You know, so in that situation, if the bank is completely away from knowing the contents of the locker, then that I would say is going towards the Switzerland way of having lockers.
Okay, so not just have safe lockers, but also have lockers that are not within the purview of either the banks or people in the bank. They can't see what you've kept inside, but it remains protected. Banks, of course, are ensuring basic safety. You're responsible for everything else. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Business Plus. Keep watching News 9.